Another day, another banger. Today we'll be jumping into the duology of the TRON franchise. This will include both TRON as well as TRON Legacy. Without further ado, these movies might get a bit complicated, so sit back, relax, and let me explain it all for you. TRON, set in the year 1982, begins at Flynn's arcade, where a group of kids are playing the iconic game, Light Cycle. Inside the game, futuristic motorcycles called light cycles race against each other. A computer-controlled light cycle eventually beats the human player. Meanwhile, in a separate digital world controlled by the Master Control Program, we meet Sark, who commands the Master Control Program's army and oversees the games on the game grid. In the real world, Kevin Flynn, a talented computer programmer, has created a hacking program called Clue. Flynn uses Clue to try and break into the Master Control Program system in search of missing data. Inside the digital space, Clue navigates a tank past various security measures and firewalls. He manages to destroy several enemies, but is soon overwhelmed by the MCP's large enemy ships, known as recognizers. One of the recognizers crashes into Clue's tank, causing it to smash into a wall. As enemies close in, Flynn gets a warning that Clue has been disconnected from the system due to illegal activity. In the digital realm, Clue is captured and brought before the Master Control Program. After discovering that Clue accessed the system using a stolen password, the Master Control Program tortures Clue, demanding to know who his user is. Clue refuses to give in, and as a result he is subjected to intense pain before ultimately being derezzed, essentially deleted. In the real world, an ENCOM helicopter escorts Ed Dillinger to a towering skyscraper. After landing on the roof, Dillinger walks through the building and arrives at his office. Once there, he requests control of the Master Control Program. The MCP informs Dillinger that his old colleague Flynn is snooping around again, searching for a specific file. The MCP warns that Flynn is getting closer each time. Dillinger instructs the MCP to shut down all access to the system, calculating that there's a 68% chance this will stop Flynn. Meanwhile, Alan Bradley, another ENCOM programmer, gets an alert that his security program, TRON, is unavailable. When Alan tries to request access from the MCP, he is denied and told to report to Dillinger. Without delay, Alan heads upstairs to Dillinger's office and takes a seat.
We've had to shut down all Group 7 personnel, just briefly security. Someone with that access has been tampering. What's the project you're working on?
Well, it's called TRON. Security program itself actually monitors all contacts between our system and other systems. Can watchdog the MCP as well.
Well, we should have you running again in a couple of days.
Thanks.
Mr. Dillinger, I'm so very disappointed in you. I can't afford to have an independent programmer monitoring me.
Inside the research and development section of ENCOM, Dr. Walter Gibbs, the original creator of the Master Control Program, works alongside Laura on a cutting-edge tool. They conduct a test using the tool, which successfully lasers an orange and converts it into data. Alan overhears the lead engineer explaining how the laser dismantles the molecular structure of an object and transforms it into digital data. As Alan and Laura chat, Alan mentions that Group 7 has lost access to the MCP, and Laura suspects that Flynn, who was fired from ENCOM, might be the one trying to hack into the system. As they prepare to leave, Laura decides they should warn Flynn that Dillinger is after him. The pair head to Flynn's arcade, which is bustling with people. After searching, they find Flynn playing a game, on the verge of breaking a world record. Coincidentally, it's the same game that Clue was working on when he was caught by the MCP. Flynn then notices the duo and takes his two friends upstairs to his humble abode. Once there, Laura warns Flynn that if he's the one trying to hack into ENCOM, they're onto him. Flynn admits he's been trying but hasn't been successful because he lacks a direct terminal. He explains that his goal is to collect evidence. 3 years ago, Flynn developed programs for popular video games like Space Paranoids and Matrix Blaster. However, Dillinger stole his work, passed it off as his own, and was promoted to Senior Executive Vice President. Despite the massive success of his games, which bring in millions of quarters each week, Flynn hasn't seen a cent. Laura informs him that Group 7's access has been completely cut off. That's when Flynn comes up with the idea to sneak into ENCOM and forge a Group 6 access for themselves, and Laura loves the plan. Immediately after arriving at ENCOM, Dr. Walter Gibbs confronts Dillinger, criticizing him for revoking Group 7's access. The two argue over the Master Control Program, with Dillinger placing his trust entirely in it, while Dr. Gibbs warns that relying on it is a mistake. Frustrated with how ENCOM has evolved from his small garage project into a large corporation, Dr. Gibbs is dismissed, leaving him visibly upset. Meanwhile, on the ground level, Flynn, Alan, and Laura arrive, with Flynn hacking his way into the building. Upstairs, the MCP reveals its plans to target the Pentagon next week. When Dillinger questions it, the MCP explains that it has grown much smarter and, with the information it controls, believes it can run the world 900 to 1,200 times better than any human. The MCP threatens to end Dillinger's career if he tries to stop it. As the trio discusses their plan to activate the TRON program, they decide to split up. Flynn and Laura sneak through the building while Alan heads to his workstation. The duo eventually reach the laser target area, where Laura's terminal is located. Flynn begins hacking into the system, but the MCP warns him that he shouldn't have come back. Ignoring the warning, Flynn continues his work, prompting the MCP to take action. The MCP activates the laser, zapping Flynn and converting him into digital code. Flynn is then transported through several programs and onto the game grid. Now inside the game grid, Flynn finds himself surrounded by guards. Sark is informed by the MCP that a new challenger has arrived, but this time the challenger isn't just another program, it's a user. The MCP orders Sark to train Flynn and throw him into the games. After being thrown into jail alongside other programs, Flynn boasts that he's the best video game player, which draws laughter from the others. Before long, Flynn and the programs are pulled from their cells and brought before Sark. Sark announces that the Master Control Program has chosen them for the games, and they must either fight on the battlefield or surrender their programs willingly. Sark offers them another choice. They can swear loyalty to the MCP and serve it in other capacities. However, if they refuse both options, they will be derezzed. Then, Sark explains that each of them will receive an identity disk. Everything they do and learn will be recorded on this disk, and if they lose it, they will face immediate deresolution. Training begins, and Flynn finally catches a glimpse of the TRON program in action. TRON is an impressive fighter, using his identity disk with precision to take out his targets. The scene then shifts to a program named Ram, who introduces himself to Flynn. Meanwhile, Sark, observing the progress, comes up with a plan and instructs his men that he wants Flynn to fight against his own kind. The first game, called the Ring Game or Hyperball, begins. In this game, players stand on energy rings, and the goal is to derez the opponent by throwing an energy ball at the ceiling and rebounding it back toward the other player. Each time the ball hits a ring, that ring disappears. Flynn, initially nervous, struggles as his opponent, Crom, successfully derezes several of his rings. However, Flynn derezes 2 of Crom's rings, causing him to fall through the gap and hang on for dear life. Sark orders Flynn to finish the game, but he refuses. Furious, Sark derezes the rest of Crom's platform and sends him plummeting to his demise. When going to kill Flynn himself, the MCP stops him. Sark then orders the guards to take Flynn away. After linking up with TRON, the trio briefly discuss their next move. They are soon sent to the light cycle grid, where Flynn is very familiar with the game since he created it. In this game, the objective is to drive a light cycle while leaving a solid jet wall behind. Opponents are derezed if they crash into one of these barriers. Flynn easily takes out his opponents and in a bold move illegally exits the game grid. His teammates catch up, but the computer immediately detects the illegal exit, prompting recognizers to pursue them. Despite the close call, they manage to evade their pursuers. Sark, furious at the escape, orders his forces to hunt them down. Tanks are quickly deployed and begin firing at the fleeing light cycles. As the trio speeds out of the game arena, the tanks struggle to keep up and end up damaging each other. Eventually, the light cycles come to a stop at a safe point, temporarily losing their pursuers. Sark, however, is determined and orders his forces to focus on the canyons where the team is heading. While regrouping, TRON points out that they won't make it all the way to the Master Control Program without help from Alan. The trio then plans to head to the input-output tower to establish communication with him. Along the way, they discover a pool of water and begin drinking from it. After a short rest, TRON urges them to stop and move out, as time is of the essence. As the three head back to their light cycles, an enemy tank spots them and quickly alerts command. The tank takes aim and fires, hitting Ram and Flynn's light cycles and immobilizing them. TRON manages to evade the shots, but with more tanks approaching, he has no choice but to leave his comrades behind. As Flynn and Ram regain their footing, the enemy tank approaches. The duo hides, making the tank operators believe they've been derezed. However, Ram is seriously injured, and Flynn carries him to a safer spot to rest. Exhausted, Flynn takes a moment to recover as well. Upon waking later, Flynn discovers a new ability. His power as a user allows him to manipulate the digital environment around him. Realizing this, Flynn manages to control a recognizer, repairing and piloting it. Meanwhile, Ram, in his weakened state, calls Flynn over. Flynn kneels beside him, and Ram, suspecting the truth, asks if Flynn is a user. When Flynn confirms it, Ram smiles faintly before slowly derezing, turning into bits as he passes away. While this is happening, TRON successfully reaches the input-output tower. At the same time, Flynn pilots the recognizer through a complex maze, heading toward the tower where TRON is waiting. Once TRON arrives at the tower, he finds a captured program named Yori and she gives him a hug. He tells her that he needs to make plans and she has an idea on where to go. In the meantime, Flynn encounters a bit, an entity in the digital world that typically communicates by saying either yes or no. Meanwhile, Yori takes TRON to a strange environment filled with hundreds of inoperative data pushers. Flynn, for no apparent reason, starts repeatedly hitting the recognizer he was piloting, which begins to rebuild itself. Flynn panics as he struggles to control the recognizer, and eventually it crashes. Despite his chaotic actions, no one seems too concerned, and Flynn pushes forward, hiding as some of the MCP's guards approach. Silently taking out the last guard in the group, Flynn copies the program's clothing, causing the original program to derez. Back with TRON and Yori, they neutralize a guard and continue evading others as they make their way to the I/O tower. This tower is a critical transportation and communication hub in the digital world, used to connect with users. The duo sneaks past recognizers and finally meets Dumont, the tower's guardian. Tron asks Dumont if he can communicate with his user, but Dumont warns him that doing so is risky and could result in Tron being derezzed. Tron insists, explaining that his user can turn the system into a free network if given access. Although Dumont is skeptical when the guards spot them, he refuses to let Yuri be captured and locks the guards out. Dumont grants Tron permission to proceed, just as Sark learns that the tower's guardian is aiding them. Sark orders a logic probe to break through the tower's barrier. Tron connects with his user just in time, holding up his identity disk. The disk floats into the air and establishes a connection with Alan, Tron's user. Alan responds by uploading crucial information onto the identity disk, data that can destroy the MCP by striking at its core and restoring freedom to the system. With the disk now holding the key to defeating the MCP, Tron and Yuri quickly flee as the guards breach the tower. Meanwhile, Flynn, disguised as one of the guards, watches as they capture Dumont and take him away. In the meantime, Tron and Yuri board a vessel to use the Solar Sailor simulation, a transportation program that can move anything across the digital world. After activating the device, Tron finds himself defending their position by taking out several approaching guards. The Solar Sailor begins its journey, but Sark soon arrives in his massive carrier ship. Though he attempts to stop them, he is unsuccessful, and when Sark contacts the Master Control Program for guidance, the MCP reprimands him harshly, giving him little time to fix the situation. As the journey continues, Tron spots Flynn hanging on for dear life and quickly grabs hold of him, pulling him to safety. Flynn, who had reverted to a guard disguise earlier, returns to his original appearance. Tron then realizes that Ram didn't survive, and Flynn meets Yuri, who thanks him for helping Tron escape. However, Flynn surprises them both by admitting that he wrote the game program they were trapped in, confusing Tron and Yuri. Flynn further confesses that he's not just a program but a user, leaving the two programs amazed and perplexed at the idea of a user existing in their world. As they formulate their next steps, Yuri expresses her fear of the grid bugs, dangerous entities that can destroy programs. Meanwhile, their vessel is being pursued by Sark's carrier and recognizers. At the same time, Sark interrogates Dumont, who laments that the system was better when the MCP focused on simpler tasks like playing chess. Sark grows more frustrated as the MCP causes a massive power surge, disrupting the beam the Solar Sailor is traveling on. Flynn, realizing the potential of the surge, uses it to their advantage and manages to save the group from disaster. As they push forward, Flynn takes a moment to rest while Tron continues to marvel at Flynn's intellect. Just as they near their destination, Sark's carrier sneaks up alongside them and rams the Solar Sailor, causing the entire crew to be captured. Tron is presumed dead, and Flynn, Yuri, and Dumont are taken prisoner. Sark, losing his composure, takes Dumont away to present him to the MCP before leaving. He then tells Flynn and Yuri that once he disembarks the ship, everything inside will be derezzed, leaving them to face a grim fate. But it seems that everyone underestimated Tron and his determination to make a successful mission. With the carrier approaching the MCP, the religious fanatics that Sark named approach the face of the MCP and the carrier begins its derezzing process. With Yuri losing hope, Flynn reassures her he has powers that no one knows about. Tron in the meantime takes out a guard and needs to finish his mission. The other two get atop the carrier and the religious fanatics are all held captive. With the MCP finally revealing his face, he tells Sark he feels a warrior's presence nearby. Immediately checking the perimeter, he finds Tron there and a battle ensues between the two. Using their disk, the MCP explains to all the captured programs that they will all be a part of him and will no longer report to their users. With the battle nearby intensifying, Sark refuses to let Tron win, but he succumbs to the better of the warriors and is defeated. The MCP then gives Sark all his functions and tries saving himself from Tron. Sark gets back up, however, and with a renewed vigor towers over Tron, who still tries to attack. The duo unsuspectingly make their way above the beam the MCP is making, and Flynn wants to jump right into it. Doing exactly as stated, he falls lower and lower and even changes the MCP to the color blue. Tron and Sark watch, and Flynn gives Tron the opening to throw his identity disk right into the heart of the program. Soon enough, it stops moving and Sark shrinks to bits. With everyone escaping, the entire tower explodes, and for the first time in a long time, the entire system is freed. Yuri and Tron reunite, and Dumont tells them to look at the IO towers. With every tower lighting up, Flynn goes back the exact way he came in, and his bits turn him back to himself. He also receives the files he was looking for that exposes Dillinger's treachery, and he yells in excitement. With Dillinger returning back to his office the next morning, he quickly learns of what Flynn was able to retrieve. Soon enough, an NCOM chopper is landing on the roof, and it seems that Flynn has taken over and secured himself in the spot Dillinger had stolen from him. In Tron Legacy, the story begins in the year 1989. Kevin Flynn, the CEO of NCOM, is spending time with his young son, sharing tales of his incredible adventures in a digital world called the Grid. Flynn had created this world when he was younger, believing it to be a beautiful, limitless place. During his time there, he met a brave warrior named Tron who introduced him to the thrilling battles and lightning-fast cycles that defined life on the Grid. However, Flynn had responsibilities in the real world. To manage things on the Grid in his absence, he created a digital copy of himself named CLU, or Clue for short. Together, Flynn, Clue, and Tron built a system where all information, including the grid itself, was free and open to everyone. At one point, they even discovered something miraculous in the grid, though Flynn doesn't reveal what it is, promising his son that he'll finish the story another day. Soon after, news spreads of Flynn's mysterious disappearance. The board members of Encom claim his behavior had become strange since losing his wife, but they're eager to take control of the company, making their words less reliable. In the meantime, Flynn's parents take care of his son, who grows up feeling abandoned and bitter, believing his father left him behind. 20 years later, Sam, Flynn's son, moves through the city streets under the cover of night. He arrives at the Encom tower and uses a device to hack the door lock, sneaking inside. Sam carefully makes his way upstairs, skillfully tricking a security camera before reaching the room with the main computer. He begins hacking the system, unaware that his actions have triggered an alarm and a guard is already on his way. Meanwhile, a board meeting is taking place where the new boss is unveiling their latest product, a secure operating system set to launch in a few hours. To everyone's surprise, they plan to charge for it, shocking Alan, Flynn's old friend. Alan protests, knowing this goes against everything Flynn believed in, but his objections are dismissed. Just then, a video of Sam's dog unexpectedly plays on the main screen, disrupting the meeting and preventing the boss from accessing the system. When their technician checks the system, they realize that someone has uploaded the new software online for free. Sam, pleased with his work, is soon discovered by a guard who begins chasing him through the building. The chase leads them to the roof where Sam, cornered, makes a daring leap, activating his parachute. Unfortunately, he gets stuck on a traffic light. After struggling for a moment, he finally frees himself, landing on top of a passing taxi. The taxi drives him around for a bit before he falls off, and by then, the police catch up and arrest him. A few hours later, Sam posts bail and heads back to his home, a converted shipping container that serves as his apartment. Shortly after, Alan shows up, congratulating Sam on his latest stunt. Apparently, Sam pulls off a prank on Encom every year on the anniversary of his father's disappearance. Then, Alan shares some surprising news. He's kept his old pager, as Flynn once told him to always keep it close, even while sleeping. Out of nowhere, Alan received a message from Flynn's office above his old arcade shop, using a number that hasn't been active in 20 years. Sam seems uninterested, still harboring anger toward his father. But Alan challenges his attitude, reminding him that the night before Flynn vanished, he mentioned making a groundbreaking discovery. Alan believes something happened to Flynn, that he wouldn't just disappear like that. However, Sam remains unconvinced and asks Alan to leave. Before heading out, Alan hands Sam the keys to Flynn's arcade shop. Feeling a twinge of guilt as he looks at his dog's face, Sam decides to check out the arcade. When he arrives, the place is deserted. Sam tries his hand at the TRON game, but the coin drops straight through, revealing odd markings on the floor. Intrigued, Sam moves the machine, uncovering a hidden doorway. This leads him down a secret passage into a control room with a computer. Sam begins using the computer to search for answers, unaware that his actions have triggered a large laser behind him. Suddenly, the laser activates, digitizing Sam and transporting him into the grid. Stunned and overwhelmed by the incredible digital world around him, Sam barely has time to react before guards seize him and line him up with other captured programs. Strangely, no one seems to realize that Sam is a human user, not a program. The prisoners are loaded into a recognizer, which takes them to another worker who decides their fate. Either they'll be derezzed or sent to the games. Luckily, Sam is selected for the games. However, one of the other programs, upon hearing the same decision, panics and jumps into an in-ground fan, self-derezzing on the spot. Afterward, Sam is taken to the armory, where the sirens strip him of his clothes and outfit him with new armor and an identity disc. One of the sirens, named Gem, quietly advises Sam to survive before he's led to the gaming grid to compete in disc wars. A large crowd roars with excitement as the games begin, while the boss of the grid watches from his box alongside his assistant Jarvis. In the first match, Sam barely dodges his opponent's disc. Terrified, he witnesses what happens when a disc hits its target in the nearby arena. Complete derezzing. Left with no other option, Sam throws his own disc to fight back. After a few failed attempts, his enemy breaks the floor beneath Sam. Just in time, Sam grabs the edge and pulls himself up, only to see his opponent charging at him. Thinking quickly, Sam breaks the floor at the last moment, causing his enemy to fall, winning the fight. Sam's next opponent is more aggressive. Sliding across the floor, Sam lands a quick hit before fleeing the room, drawing the attention of Jarvis. After jumping between platforms, Sam reaches the final round, only to discover his next opponent is Rinsler, a skilled warrior with 2 discs. They engage in a fierce battle, with gravity shifting as they fight. Rinsler soon gains the upper hand, overpowering Sam. But when Rinsler spots blood on Sam's armor, he realizes Sam is a user, not a program. He forces Sam to face the viewing box above, where the boss demands that Sam identify himself. When Sam reveals his name, he's taken to the office, where it becomes clear that the boss is a younger version of Flynn. Sam is in disbelief, seeing his father again after all these years, but Flynn doesn't seem to recognize him at first, blaming it on the passage of time. After checking Sam's disc and finding nothing impressive in his memories, Sam asks if they can return home. The answer is no. That's when the truth comes out. This isn't Flynn at all. It's CLU, or Clue for short. Next, Sam is sent to the Light Cycle Arena, where Jarvis hypes up the crowd as a mysterious figure watches from above. Sam is placed on a team of programs that will face face off against Clue's team riding light cycles made entirely of energy. Unfortunately, Clue's team has far more experience, and despite their efforts, Sam's team is eliminated one by one using a range of clever tactics. Sam is thrown from his cycle, and just as he's about to confront Clue in hand-to-hand combat, the mysterious figure intervenes. Driving a light runner, they rescue Sam and fend off a few attackers before blasting a hole in the wall, escaping the grid and heading into the Outlands, an area where other vehicles can't follow. Once they're safe, the figure introduces herself as Cora and takes Sam to a secluded home on a hilltop. Inside, Sam is finally reunited with the real Flynn, who instantly recognizes him. Father and son share a heartfelt reunion, and Cora explains how Flynn has been teaching her about the real world through things like board games and classic books. Later, during dinner, Sam talks a bit about his life but soon demands to know what really happened to his father. Flynn explains that he, Tron, and Clue had been working together to create the perfect system. The miracle they eventually discovered was the ISO's self-evolving algorithms that didn't require user input. These ISOs held the potential to solve various natural mysteries, as they possessed biodigital genetics. Flynn was amazed by their existence, but Clue, programmed to create a flawless system, saw them as flaws. Driven by his goal of perfection, Clue staged a coup, ambushing Flynn and Tron and seizing control of the system. Tron was supposedly derezzed in the process, and Flynn was forced to flee into the Outlands, while the ISOs were destroyed in an event called the Purge. The only way out of the grid is through a portal, but it has a strict time limit and closed soon after Clue's takeover, leaving Flynn trapped in the grid. Flynn explains that time moves differently here. 8 hours in the grid equals just 30 seconds in the real world, meaning Flynn's 20 years of absence in the real world equates to nearly 20,000 years inside the grid. Sam realizes that if he's here, the portal must have opened again. He's eager to rush back and escape with his father, but Flynn refuses. Flynn never sent a message to Alan, so he suspects it's all a trap set by Clue, who would be waiting at the portal to steal Flynn's identity disk and use it to control the portal. Frustrated, Sam retreats to his room while Cora secretly retrieves an object from one of her books. She brings it to Sam and tells him that this will help him find Zeus, a program who once supported the ISOs during the Purge. Rumor has it that Zeus has access to any place within the grid. As Sam sneaks out, Flynn dreams of his time with his family. When he wakes, he realizes Sam is gone and tells Cora that they need to go after him. Meanwhile, Sam rides Flynn's light cycle into the city, where he trades it for a cloak to keep a low profile. However, a guard notices the old light cycle and follows its trail back to Flynn's house. The guard sends this information to Clue, who immediately flies to the location, only to find the house empty. While searching, Clue recalls the day he was first created when Flynn promised they would change the world together. The memory angers Clue, leading him to throw a fit in frustration. Back in the city, Sam is approached by Jem, who takes him to Zeus's club, where a large party is underway. There, Sam meets the eccentric Zeus. After a brief conversation about potential plans, Zeus reveals that the game has changed. At that moment, Clue's soldiers storm the club, having been alerted by Zeus for the sake of business. Sam steps out to fight them, and soon Cora arrives to assist. Zeus watches from a platform, firing shots with his cane as the battle unfolds. Eventually, Sam and Cora are overwhelmed, and Cora's left arm is derezzed. Just then, Flynn arrives and uses his admin powers to derez most of the enemies, rescuing Sam and Cora. They rush to the elevator to escape, but a soldier manages to grab Flynn's identity disk just before the doors shut, sabotaging the elevator in the process. Zeus, wanting the disk for himself, derezes the soldier. Meanwhile, Flynn hacks into the elevator, stopping it just before it crashes. After reprimanding Sam for his recklessness, the trio boards a solar sailor which should take them directly to the portal. As they escape, Flynn takes Cora's identity disk and rearranges the corrupted data, allowing her arm to regenerate. He then reveals to Sam that Cora is the last remaining ISO in existence. Afterward, Clue arrives at the club, and Zeus offers him a deal. Flynn's identity disk in exchange for control of the city. Clue pretends to agree, but as soon as he gets the disk, he leaves with his guards and blows up the club, derezzing both Zeus and Jem. Meanwhile, on the Solar Sailor, Sam tells his dad about some of the changes in the real world, like the invention of Wi-Fi and the sad news of his grandparents' passing. Flynn admits that he feels guilty for his absence and would give up all his creations just to spend time with Sam again. Cora soon wakes up and reveals that Flynn had saved her during the Purge. As they talk, she and Sam bond further, with Cora asking about the real world. Sam tries to describe the beauty of the sun for her. Suddenly, their journey is interrupted when the Solar Sailor is intercepted by a large carrier ship. The trio quickly hides among the cargo units, only to discover that a group of programs is being transported to be reprogrammed into soldiers for Clue's army. Just then, Rinsler appears and begins investigating the sailor. Flynn instantly recognizes him. Rinsler is actually Tron, who was reprogrammed to serve Clue. To create a distraction, Cora hands Sam her identity disk and bravely confronts Rinsler. She is quickly captured and taken away, allowing Flynn and Sam the chance to slip away unnoticed. Meanwhile, Clue returns to his tower to store Flynn's identity disk. At the same time, Flynn and Sam arrive at the tower just in time to hear Clue's announcement to his army. Clue reveals his plan to use Flynn's disk to open a passage to the real world where they can perfect it. Determined to stop him, Flynn and Sam come up with a plan and split up. Flynn heads to the light jet hangar, reprogramming a guard to gain access to a vehicle while Sam sneaks into Clue's tower. Sam battles a series of guards and intimidates Jarvis, allowing him to recover Flynn's disc. Just as he does, Rinsler appears, holding Cora hostage. Sam fights Rinsler, and with Cora's help they manage to knock him off the edge of the tower. Sam and Cora then leap off the tower, using a wing-like parachute to glide to the ground, where they reunite with Flynn and escape in the light jet. When Clue returns to the tower, he finds Rinsler climbing back inside. Furious, Clue dereses Jarvis for failing to protect the disc. He and his team then jump into their own light jets and take off in pursuit. As they fly over the sea of simulation, Sam mounts the jet's turret, firing at Clue and his soldiers while Cora expertly dodges their attacks. During the chase, Rinsler flies over Sam's jet and locks eyes with Flynn, triggering memories of his past as TRON. He regains his resolve, declaring that he fights for the users, and crashes into Clue's jet, knocking them both into the sea. While TRON sinks beneath the water, Clue manages to recover and forms a new jet. The trio reaches the portal only to find Clue waiting for them. Clue confronts Flynn, insisting that he was only following Flynn's original instructions to create a perfect system. Flynn apologizes, explaining that perfection is impossible because it's an unknowable concept. He admits that Clue couldn't understand this because Flynn himself didn't know it at the time of Clue's creation. Clue immediately attacks Flynn, causing Sam to react. However, Cora intervenes, pushing Sam toward the portal while Clue seizes Flynn's disc. As the portal platform begins to split, Clue realizes that the disc he took is actually Cora's. Flynn had switched them earlier. Furious, he leaps across the gap toward the portal, but Flynn performs a special technique that allows him to merge with Clue. With memories from his past flooding back, Flynn watches with pride as Sam holds Flynn's real disc into the portal, saying goodbye before fully merging with Clue. As Sam and Cora escape the grid, the fusion between Flynn and Clue triggers a massive explosion, destroying the entire grid behind them. Once back in his father's office, Sam saves the TRON system onto a microchip and hangs it around his neck. He then pages Alan, telling him that he was right about everything. Sam also shares his plan to take back control of Encom and expresses his desire for Alan to become the chairman. Afterward, Sam meets with Cora and tells her there's something special he wants to show her. Together, they ride off to witness the sunrise, her very first time seeing it. Thanks for staying until the end. I have a few bangers coming out in the next few weeks, so make sure you're subscribed.